back to the Hill. Congress settles down to work after the August recess. Simplifying the process. Major changes announced for granting annulments. Cheney weighs in. The former vice president blasts the Iran nuclear deal. And family pilgrimage. A family driving from Argentina to Philadelphia for the World Meeting of Families makes it to Alabama. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, September 8th, 2015. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. Congress is back at work, tackling the federal budget, which includes a move to defund Planned Parenthood. In fact, in just 2 weeks, the Pope addresses a joint meeting of Congress for the first time in history. But today's debate centered around the Iran deal. Jason Calvi reports from the Capitol tonight.
Brian, Senate Democrats now have the 41 votes they need to stop a vote disapproving of the Iranian deal. But these supporters of the deal stopped short of claiming victory today as they return after a 5-week recess.
The question remains, will the 41 senators who support the agreement support a filibuster, blocking a final vote? The Senate Majority Leader urges against a filibuster.
I call on every senator to resist attempts to obstruct a final vote and deny the American people in Congress the say they deserve on this extremely important matter.
This agreement will stand. America will uphold its commitment and will seize this opportunity to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
Also on the fall agenda is the budget, which includes funding for Planned Parenthood. There is a move to defund it after a series of undercover videos allege the group harvests baby organs for profit. Senator Mitch McConnell says those who want to strip Planned Parenthood of federal funds will have to wait until a pro-life president is elected. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas supports passing a budget without the funding, even if it results in a government shutdown. In the House, Representative Diane Black of Tennessee has introduced a bill that would defund Planned Parenthood for 1 year.
I think that's where the confusion gets put on the whole conversation, is thinking, well, if you close down the government, somehow that automatically defunds Planned Parenthood. It does not. We need to take other actions to make sure that we defund Planned Parenthood.
Representative Black has a meeting tonight with Speaker Boehner to talk about her bill. It would stop funding for Planned Parenthood for 1 year to give Congress the time they need to investigate these videos. Meanwhile, the first congressional hearing on these videos is tomorrow, Brian.
Jason, is the House expected to vote on that bill?
Well, Representative Black says that the House Majority Leader has told her the House will be voting on her bill sometime this fall.
Jason Calvi on Capitol Hill. Thanks, Jason. Some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. Pope Francis issues new regulations simplifying the church's process for annulling marriages. There's a new procedure to be completed within 45 days that can be used when both spouses request an annulment or don't oppose it. The automatic appeal now in place will be dropped. An appeal is still possible, but one of the parties must request it. That's been the case in the United States for many years. The Pope says the overall aim of the reform is the salvation of souls. Americans visiting the Vatican today are reacting.
To help people who have had difficult times in their lives with difficult marriages, to be able to look to the church for support, and for them to be able to look to the future and realize that they can be embraced by the church.
In his document, Pope Francis insists that sacramental marriage remains an indissoluble union. Our Rome correspondent Alan Holdren is with us. Alan, you attended today's news conference. Why did the Pope make this change?
Well, the Pope himself has said that there's a need for justice to be served as soon as possible in deciding these cases about whether or not a marriage is indeed valid. He said that the church is working for the salvation of souls, and it must be evident in these cases in bringing about the process as fast as possible and as cheaply as possible.
Well, certainly this change came about quickly by Vatican standards, did it not? I mean, it's only been a year or so since the canon lawyers have studied this.
That's right. The Pope asked canon lawyers and other experts to convene a year ago in August to talk about this specific theme, to see how the process for marriage annulments would be streamlined. And they've come to a decision already. The Pope has spoken in this case based on that commission's results.
This is still a very controversial within the church. There is certainly a part of the church that thinks that this will make it easier for people to simply end a marriage. The Pope made it clear that sacramental marriage is indissoluble. Do you think this will be debated at the October Synod on the Family, even though it's pretty much a done deal?
Yeah, I think it will be, Brian. I think a lot of things will be discussed. This is still one of them. I think it does diffuse a bit of the tension around the issue of the divorced and remarried receiving communion in particular, because we're going down to the base in this case and looking at whether or not that marriage was valid. And they're looking for the truth here, and they think that they can do that at a diocesan level in just one specific sentence, looking to the local bishop to be in charge of ensuring that process of moral certainty as to whether or not the marriage was indeed valid.
Will we hear a lot more of discussion about this? Alan Holdren, our Rome correspondent. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Brian.
We have more analysis in just a few minutes. Meanwhile, Kim Davis, the jailed county clerk in Kentucky, is free tonight. She walked out of jail this afternoon, greeted by dozens of supporters. The judge who sent her to jail last week ordered her release today. The Rowan County clerk was held in contempt for refusing to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. Republican presidential candidates Mike Huckabee and Senator Ted Cruz met with her and her lawyer in jail earlier today.
We serve a living God who knows exactly where each and every one of us is at. Just keep on pressing. Don't let down, because he is here. And he's worthy, he's worthy.
The judge is ordering Davis not to interfere with her deputies issuing licenses to all eligible couples. Her attorneys have asked that her name be taken off those licenses. Davis says her religious beliefs and God's authority prohibit her from issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples. Roger Ganem, senior litigation counsel at Liberty Counsel, representing Kim Davis. How do you think this issue can be resolved respecting everyone's rights?
That's a great question, and the answer is really simple. The governor of Kentucky has the power to reorganize the marriage licensing scheme until the General Assembly of Kentucky can meet again in January and make permanent changes. But the governor could easily give an accommodation to Kim Davis and clerks who have a like mind that relieves them from issuing marriage licenses against their conscience, and everyone's still going to get a marriage license who wants one.
Now, you're comparing this case to Martin Luther King Jr.'s fight to forward freedom, civil rights, advance civil rights. Explain that.
Well, Martin Luther King recognized that an unjust law, or a law that goes against natural law or the law revealed to us by God, is really no law at all, and that we not only have the right, but really a duty to resist unjust laws, to raise the conscience of the community as to their injustice.
Roger Ganem with Liberty Counsel joining us by Skype from Florida. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you for having me.
And the city of Baltimore reaches a $6.4 million wrongful death settlement with the family of Freddie Gray. Gray died in April after suffering a severe spine injury while in police custody. 6 Baltimore police officers are facing criminal charges in connection with his death. That incident sparked protests, rioting, and violent unrest in Baltimore for days. The settlement must still be approved by a board that oversees city spending. The woman shot on live television in Roanoke, Virginia, is now home from the hospital. Vicki Gardner, who is being interviewed when the shooting happened, was released today and is recovering at home. The reporter interviewing her and a videographer for the TV station were killed by that gunman. Gardner underwent 2 surgeries after a bullet came within centimeters of taking her life. Dick Cheney accuses President Obama of equipping Iran to destroy the U.S. In a speech delivered today, the former vice president calls the Iran nuclear agreement madness. Suzanne LaFranchi has more tonight.
A defiant Dick Cheney said Congress's vote on a nuclear deal with Iran will have profound consequences.
This agreement will give Iran the means to launch a nuclear attack on the U.S. homeland.
Cheney, a GOP military hawk, was one of the architects of President Bush's invasion of Iraq. Today, he argued the pact will give Tehran billions of dollars in sanctions relief and a path to nuclear arms.
I know of no nation in history that has agreed to guarantee that the means of its own destruction will be in the hands of another nation. particularly one that is hostile.
Because of this deal, the international community will be able to verify that the Islamic Republic of Iran will not develop a nuclear weapon.
But Cheney says the deal will embolden Iran.
It took Nazi Germany 7 years to kill 6 million Jews. It would take a nuclear-armed Iran one day.
The issue has transcended Capitol Hill. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has urged Congress to support the accord. And at Easter Mass this year, Pope Francis expressed his support for a deal. He could push it when he addresses Congress later this month.
It's incomprehensible to me because the Pope stands for peace. This agreement ensures war.
The president did face some searing criticism. Protesters from Code Pink interrupted Cheney's speech. One young woman told him her generation wants diplomacy and peace. Brian?
Suzanne LaFranchi, thank you. Coming up, migrants clash with police trying to break through their lines at the Hungary-Serbia border. And a journalist points out a double standard in the case of County Clerk Kim Davis.
Ogni parrocchia, ogni comunità religiosa, ogni monastero.
Pope Francis calling on every parish, convent, and monastery in Europe to take in a refugee. The Vatican itself will shelter 2 families fleeing war or hunger. Thank you for joining us this Tuesday evening, September 8th. I'm Brian Patrick. The Obama administration says it is actively considering ways to be more responsive to the global migrant crisis. This could include refugee resettlement as the crisis continues in Europe. Today in Hungary, hundreds of refugees are stuck near the border with Serbia. Some clashed with officers while trying to break through a police line. Conditions are poor with not enough food and water and trash tossed everywhere.
But this is not a way to treat refugees. What's our fault that our country has war? What's our fault? What's our fault that our country has war? We have a problem. I'm not happy to leave my home and to come here to be treated like an animal.
Hungarian police say they've detained nearly 170,000 migrants this year. Laura Sheehan is communications coordinator for Jesuit Refugee Service in Rome. Laura, every day on the news, we're showing a flood of refugees and migrants from North Africa, from the Middle East into Europe. What is Jesuit Refugee Service able to do to help them?
We're very active in many countries in Europe. Right here in Italy, we're cooking hundreds of hot meals for refugees. In Macedonia, we're giving out water on the border where people are making a really exhausting journey. We have a safe house there too. We just got a picture of a little baby, 2 weeks old, born to Syrian refugee parents. And thank goodness he's okay, even though his mother was pregnant on the boat coming across the sea. We have a great program in France that matches families through parishes to an asylum seeker who needs temporary housing up to a month.
In fact, Pope Francis is urging parishes, monasteries, convents to take in families. Is that going to help your effort?
Absolutely. We're thrilled with the Pope's words. It's really been heartwarming to see a huge outpouring of support and generosity. We've had these programs on the ground for years, linking up families or religious institutions that might have sort of an extra small building and who are able to accommodate some refugees.
Jesuit Refugee Service has a long history serving this group of people. Quickly, what kind of direction might you give to European leaders to help in this long-term effort?
One thing JRS would really like to see is a humanitarian visa for Europe. This would mean that people who are fleeing bombs and shooting and waking up in the middle of the night because the house next door crashed in, they would not have to put themselves in the hands of smugglers who really don't care if they're alive or dead, just so the smugglers get paid up front.
Jesuit Refugee Services, Laura Sheehan with us from Rome. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much.
And revisiting one of our top stories, a county clerk in Kentucky who refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples is out of jail tonight. But the marriage debate remains in the headlines. Joining us by Skype tonight, Nicholas Frankovich, an editor at National Review. You recently wrote an article about the double standard in the Kim Davis case. Remind us of some of those who defied state laws in promoting, issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples when it was against the law.
Gavin Newsom, the mayor of San Francisco, is the most famous instance. In 2004, he directed city officials to issue marriages to same-sex couples. That was in violation of California state law. He issued, or his office issued 4,000 such licenses over the course of 2 months, and he was hailed as a hero of the campaign for same-sex marriage.
And there were other cases as well. It went all the way up to the administration. Didn't Eric Holder refuse to defend the Defense of Marriage Act?
He did, and he said so that he said that he was doing so explicitly at the direction of President Obama. And that action actually mirrored the action or lack of action taken by Jerry Brown when he was Attorney General of California, and he declined to defend Proposition 8.
So the movement to redefine marriage has really been led by defiance among activists who thought those laws were wrong.
This is true.
So how do you think they should judge Kim Davis in her situation?
To be consistent, they have to judge her in the same light. They make the argument that on their side, officials violated state laws or federal laws in the case of DOMA, but that they did not defy the judiciary, and that Kim Davis is defying a federal judge. But that is, to the minds of many people, a distinction without a significant difference.
Interesting perspective. Nicholas Frankovich, an editor for the National Review. Thanks for joining us tonight. Up next, this family journeys from Buenos Aires to Philadelphia with a stop in Alabama. And the EWTN family has a new U.S. citizen to celebrate. On this 8th day of September, we celebrate the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, exactly 9 months after the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. Happy birthday to Our Lady, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. Dr. Chad Pecknold is theology professor at the Catholic University of America. Let's break down the Pope's decision to simplify the annulment process. First of all, what is an annulment, and why does the Church grant annulments?
Yeah. Well, annulments are not divorce. Annulments are a judgment, a ruling, which is a ruling meant to conform to Christ's teaching about the indissolubility of marriage. That marriage bond has to be defended in a process that the Church calls the annulment process. The granting of nullity or an annulment is a ruling by the Church that says your marriage bond in the Church was not properly formed. It was formed in such a way that it has some impediment to it, and the Church deems that you indeed were not married under the proper form.
So it used to be that a Vatican court made this decision. Now it looks like, at least in many cases, the bishop or someone delegated by a bishop can make the decision. Is that significant?
It's a very significant change that we see. The old process had a kind of first and second tribunal, which they were double blind. They made sure that they were each making a true judgment about each case. Now we've gotten rid of the second tribunal, and we've reduced down to one tribunal court that the bishop himself forms. And so that's a great simplification of the whole process. That is significant.
And so the time frame has been shortened. There's talk about eliminating fees wherever possible.
That's right.
So what is the purpose? What do you think, why do you think this decision was made, and why now? It seemed very quick.
Yeah. Two reasons, I think. One is pastoral, that when a family is facing this great tragedy of a broken union, the Church wants to accompany this person, and the last thing you want to do to a family in pain is say, we want you going through an 18-month burdensome tribunal process. And so I think the Pope's primary concern is on the family, and how can the process accompany people so that the process of judging whether or not the marriage is null or not is a healing one and not adding to the pain of a family. The second concern is going into the synod. We want to take all these technical questions of judicial review off of the table so we can focus on the substance of the good of marriage itself.
Do you see any drawbacks in this? What is the drawback?
I think there's dangers in any process in which you're making judgments about something as important as the marriage bond. And we've seen risks in the past process. I think we'll see abuses here too. I think it's inevitable that there will be some abuses. The moment that you say the local ordinary, the local bishop can simply make a decision about his moral certainty about a couple having an annulment, you're going to invite abuses from bishops all over the world who are tempted to take the easiest path. And I think this is a potential problem that we'll have to face in the future. But going forward into the Synod, I think this actually clears the way for a better conversation at the Synod than we had at the last one.
Thanks for your insight, Dr. Chad Pecknold, the Catholic University of America.
Thank you very much.
In about 2 weeks, thousands converge on Philadelphia for the World Meeting of Families, many there to see Pope Francis. 6 months ago, the Walker family of 6 left Buenos Aires, headed to Philly in a van. After crossing more than a dozen countries and entering a new continent, they're now in Birmingham, Alabama. Mark Irons talked with these dedicated pilgrims earlier today about their epic journey.
This is over 11,000 miles. Why are you making this trip?
We are on a family road trip. This is our dream trip. We left Buenos Aires 6 months ago. We are already in Birmingham. We cannot believe we made it so far. We wanted to spend a year with the family, to dedicate this year to celebrate the family. And we thought that the best end was the World Meeting of Families in Philadelphia.
Tell me a little bit about what have some of the challenges of this trip been, and what have some of the best parts of this trip been?
The big challenge was to leave Buenos Aires, to be able to overcome the fears we had about health, about if the combi would break down, about security, about many issues that many families would have. We are a very common family. We're not used to do this type of trips. But once we left, everything went with the flow, and it's been great. I think the best of the trip is the meetings with families, no? To be able to share with them some days of their lives.
Kala, you're the oldest of the Walker children. Tell me some of the places the family has been.
Machu Picchu, Máncora, Santiago de Chile, Quito, DF, a lot of places.
What do you hope to share with others after this trip is over?
We are so grateful for all of the people that are helping us and that are hosting us in their families. We want just to share the happiness, the joy of being a family. And to be able to dedicate this year to the family is a gift. And of course, we want to share that with others.
The Walker family stopping off in Birmingham, Alabama, on their way up to Philadelphia for the World Meeting of Families. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. It looks like Dad does the driving, Mom does the talking. Well, finally tonight, we congratulate a special member of our EWTN family, also from Argentina. Brother Tarcisius Maria of the Franciscan Missionaries of the Eternal Word is a new U.S. citizen, and like our Holy Father, a native of Argentina. His brother Franciscans attended his swearing-in ceremony last week. Congratulations, Brother T. What a fine man. Until tomorrow, we encourage you to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, watch again on EWTN's YouTube page. For our EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. Good night. God bless you.